And we're live. Welcome. Welcome, my friends and my mom and my assistant. We are here with maybe the Wake Her Up podcast. This might be on the Wake Up Her Up podcast, but also inside the Wake Her Up community of over 52,000 women across the globe. And today I'm bringing you three of the most gorgeous women in my lives. And we are going to be talking about women's experiences working with a telehealth provider, trying to figure out what's going on in our bodies, trying to figure out what our bodies need, and what that experience is like for three different women in three different phases of life. And I think this is really important because as we've been in this community of 52,000 women over the last 2 years, we have watched a massive scope of experience from lots of different doctors to lots of different ideas, expectations. And a lot of women are coming into this group hearing these success stories and thinking, I'm going to get on hormone therapy or I'm going to get on a GLP-1 and tomorrow my life is going to be better, right? Like we needed this yesterday, but that's not always the case. And I want to give a better story and a better expectation so women are committed to the journey that it's going to take to feel awake and alive. It's not a quick fix. We're really getting back to listening to our bodies, trusting the journey, trusting ourselves, and being committed until we feel good. That's the goal here, is to help women understand like what the realistic expectation is. So at first, let's introduce everyone that's here. First, let's start with my mother. This is my mother, Lisa. She's out of Arizona. And Mom, what was your, let's just start from the very beginning. What did you think menopause was going to be? And what information did you have to help yourself through that? And share how old you are.
I'm 64 years old, and to tell you the truth, I didn't really know anything about menopause. Other than you don't have your cycle anymore. I know my mom struggled with a little bit of depression when she was going through menopause. And actually, what's funny is I live in a senior community, but no one talks about it. And it's just kind of the unspoken, you just don't talk about it. You really, no one talks about it, which is really sad because now that I'm in this group, you realize the spectrum of menopause is huge. I, for one, had horrible hot flashes. And the women in my life, my in-laws, had never had a hot flash. Not one. And they were older than me. And so I was like, you're kidding, right? And they're like, oh, no. And so they didn't understand that I was having hot flashes every 15 minutes at night. So I was having night sweats and I was not sleeping. So that's what started me into the possibility of needing some type of hormone therapy to help me get through the night and to get through that. So that's what started my search. So
I remember when you were going to your doctor and you asked them about hormone therapy and you had been on so many medications on top of medications for side effects of the medications. I remember you telling me you were waking up like every 20 minutes with a hot flash. I remember you telling me, yeah, I mean, you weren't sleeping at all.
I
You were
clocked
so
it. I actually
miserable.
thought I was imagining it. And so I started, every time I had a hot flash, I text myself. And it ended up being every 15 minutes for 4 hours in the middle of the night. And so it wasn't just my imagination. And when I went to my OBGYN, she pretty much just said, I was on an estradiol patch. And it wasn't really making any difference to me anyway. And then she doubled the dose, and it really didn't make that much difference. And I went back and I said, this isn't helping. And she said, well, that's all we can do. Sorry, you might want to go to your primary care physician and they can prescribe a antidepressant because the side effects are that sometimes helps with the hot flashes. That was her solution. to go on
That's
antidepressant.
so crazy. I mean, after you told me that, I was like, why? Why are they prescribing antidepressants for hot flashes? And I remember Googling it and realizing that the North American Menopause Society, which is also referred to as NAMS, their top recommendation, that they're the ones teaching doctors and setting these standards for menopause, their top recommendation for treating hot flashes was at that point an antidepressant. That's crazy.
Well, you already feel like crap. You're already in a horrible mood. And so you're thinking, I mean, my thinking is, well, maybe I am depressed. Maybe I do
Yeah.
need the antidepressant. But then your libido is so bad because you're sweating like a pig at night and you don't want your husband to touch you because you feel so awful. So then you're thinking, oh, great. Now I'm going to go on antidepressant, which kills your libido even more. So yeah, it wasn't a good situation.
Oh gosh.
So
Well, I
that's
mean,
where I
and
started.
that was very much in the beginning of like my journey. And I just remember
It
thinking, like,
was.
this is what we're walking into. Like, this sounds like hell.
It
Okay, so we're gonna stop there, and I'm gonna introduce you to my assistant. This is April. April, hello. We've spent a lot of time together, and tell us how old you are and what was your experience and symptoms.
So I'm 46, and I look back and think it really started around like 39, and mine was starting with some hot flashes. I just remember some girlfriends and I were up at a cabin, and I woke up and it was cold outside, but I was like throwing my, all the covers off, opening the window. It was like 25 degrees, like breathing in the cold air, like, what is wrong? Like, this is just so weird to feel hot. And I just brushed it off. And then by the time I was 40, I really started to hit those hot flashes. Like, my feet were started to be on fire, like on fire. I had to get like ice packs and put them on my feet. And I was just like, something just doesn't feel right in my body, that it feels like it's almost boiling inside to make my feet hot. And so I started to go see doctors. I just went to my primary care, like, this is something's off in my body. It's just the first time that I felt different inside. I don't even know how to explain it. And they said, well, let's do some blood tests. And of course, the blood tests come back and say, you're fine. Everything's in the normal range. I mean, you're only 40 years old. Like, it's, normal to have hot flashes there, here and there. And so I just was like, okay, I guess this is normal. And within the next couple of years, like, all the other symptoms started to come, just like the brain fog. I just couldn't remember things that I couldn't, like, more than just walking into a room. What did I forget? Like, it was disturbing. It was so upsetting to just who I am, of something's not right. And I ended up seeing 6 different doctors. I went to the emergency room. My stomach started to just turn in. I have had 2 babies, so I know what it's like to be pregnant, but to all of a sudden have it be like a 3-month, and then I was like 5 months pregnant, like working out every day. I was walking like 5 miles a day, speed walking at the time, working out, and for my stomach just to all of a sudden not fit in clothes and be 6 months pregnant, I was just like, and when my regular doctors weren't listening, I'm like, I'm going to go to the emergency room. Like, something is wrong, that like, maybe I'm growing a tumor or something, like, really something is off. And again, they're just like, you're fine. Like, sorry, you have to work out a little harder. You need to eat a little better. And I'm like, I can't work out harder or eat better than I am. And
I remember you referring to your belly as your menopause baby.
Yes, my I called it my
Peri baby.
baby.
Peri baby.
I'm like, I guess this is just my peri baby. This is what I have to deal with for the rest of my life. And I didn't know anyone my age really going through the hot flashes and their stomach and all that. And so I started to feel crazy. Like your mom said, I just started to be like, well, maybe this is just the next part of life, is just to feel crazy and have a peri baby till I die. And what a sad feeling to just feel hopeless, that you start to feel crazy and no one knows. And
Yeah.
that's how I started researching, and that's how I found you, Marcella. Is I was just like, someone has to know something. There has to be somebody else out there going through it, and I found this community, and it has saved my sanity in life.
I mean, it's kind of continues to be mind boggling. I have this conversation every day for the last 2.5 years, and it's just still completely devastating and confusing as to how we got here. That a world of women after 40 are being told the same thing in their doctor's office and then feeling the exact same way, and the conversation isn't being had. So we're all just stuck in these individual, like, insanity lives of destruction, right? Where we don't know what is going on. Okay, we're gonna come back. We're gonna come back to you. Okay,
Yes.
we're gonna introduce one of my very best friends, Brenda. I have known Brenda for 15 years, and she's a beautiful friend. We're really close, and we're the same age. So tell us your story, Miss Brenda.
Okay. Yeah, I'm 44. Marcella and I think our birthdays are 10 days apart.
Yeah, we're real close.
We're like right there. So we kind of feel like twins, which is really fun. So my story, because I'm close to you, I've been following you from, I knew you before this was even a thing in your life. So I have had that benefit, and I didn't really experience my first perimenopause symptom, like noticeable one, until last year, 2023. It was probably started around March or April, and I just started like gaining weight suddenly and quickly, like a lot of weight. Like I put on 20 pounds in about 2 or 3 months, which is not normal. Like for me, I'm pretty fit, and that just was kind of alarming. And I'm like, what is going on? And I hadn't really changed much about my habits. So it just felt very disturbing. And then I think just life was going on, and there was things going on in my business and my personal life, in all these different areas of my life that were really stressful. And I just like had this really immense buildup of stress in the summer of last year. And my body just kind of crashed. And then I started bleeding, and I never stopped bleeding for almost 6 months. And I called it my period from hell, because I'm like, what is going on? I would maybe have a day or two break within that time period, but I just was continually bleeding. I felt like crap. I was depressed. I'm not a depressed person. I'm very energetic. I'm a business owner. I like work really hard, and I could barely get out of bed. I couldn't go to the gym. I had like no energy. And I went to my OBGYN for my annual physical, and which I needed anyway. And I was just like, make it stop. Like, what can we do? Like, I cannot do this anymore. And so we started going down that road. And of course, it takes a few months to get anything done, like medically. So we tried a few things. I think he prescribes, I want to say it was progesterone. It might have been estrogen. I'm sorry, I can't remember, like a pill. He said, take it when you're bleeding, which was like all the time. And it didn't really do anything. And so we ended up scheduling a hysterectomy. So I had a hysterectomy in January so a year ago, January 24. And obviously that stopped the bleeding. And during the hysterectomy, they found a massive fibroid on my uterus, which was the culprit. It's why I was kept bleeding, but it was undetected in any ultrasound. So they didn't know it was there. Wow. And so thank goodness, like the hysterectomy, I think really saved me. I needed that medically. But it also kind of it was a springboard into this new phase of life too. And I feel really fortunate because I have been close to Marcella and I know her journey. I knew that I would start hormone replacement therapy. after I recovered from my hysterectomy. So it was about a couple months after that I was like, okay, it's time to start hormone replacement therapy. I still was feeling very lethargic even after the surgery. I still didn't feel like my energy levels were back. So that's really was my, after the hysterectomy, that persisted. And it turns out when I got my blood work done, my testosterone was completely depleted. My iron was completely depleted. Vitamin D was completely no B12, like all of the energy stuff was gone in my body. So that's when I started not only hormone replacement therapy with testosterone and some estrogen, but also other like supplements to get.
Okay, so we're gonna get to that. Hold on,
Okay.
you're jumping
All right.
ahead.
Okay, sorry.
So I think it's so fascinating because there are over, specifically medically researched, 105 symptoms is what they're saying of perimenopause and menopause, which I think is kind of a joke to even have a number to it, because like if you were to go to kids in puberty, how many symptoms of puberty could you'd just be like, all of you, like all of the things, right? And I just feel like it's kind of silly to be talking about those symptoms in number format, because I want to say it is all of you. This is a whole new puberty for women. And so some women will pick out a specific symptom that is directly impacting their lives, and it's all different. April, for you, is those hot flashes that you were like, what, this is very different. But I know you well enough that it was also bone aches. It was also waking. It was also not sleeping. It was also feeling crazy. And it was also like all of these things. And Mom, yours was the libido and the hot flashes, right? But I bet if we had had this conversation 10 years prior, you were experiencing all the 105 symptoms as well, but you didn't know.
Well,
and then Brenda, for you, it's like your periods get all crazy. For me, it was my bones aching. For me, it was that I couldn't run anymore. That was a drastic difference for me, to not be able to go to the gym and recover, to not be able to go for a long run and feel okay. That was very stark difference for me. And yet, now that I know the symptoms, I also know that I was experiencing all of the other symptoms too. So let's get into going from feeling crazy, not knowing what's going on, to just blood work, right? Just knowing like what that does for you mentally when you get your blood work done, because there's a lot of, what would you say, conflict and contradiction in, do you need to get blood work? Can you test your hormones? How do you do it? Is it blood test? Is it a urine test? Is it a saliva test? There's all this contradiction in testing. And what we've seen from the group in a massive scale is that when women get their blood work done and a full panel done, yes, your hormones fluctuate day to day. If you tested your hormones today and then you tested them yesterday, they're going to be different. But the sanity, like the level of sanity that comes with knowing what's going on in your body, to have an answer, to be like, oh, maybe it's not my marriage. Maybe I'm not just crappy. Maybe I'm not just unmotivated. Like, there is a massive, beautiful thing that comes with blood work. So I want you to talk about just that, like just getting your blood work done. And all of you, I know, have worked with Joy Women's Wellness on some level, maybe for all of your hormones, maybe for some of it, maybe supplementing the pieces that you don't know. But I think all of you have had your blood work done from Joy Women's Wellness. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. So this is Joy Women's Wellness is a telehealth women's wellness provider. And I was blown away when I first got my blood work done with them. They sent someone to my house, and I was like, oh, this is what every woman needs, because we don't want to go anywhere. We want to just sit in our house in our jammies and have someone come take our blood. And it's like in and out in 2 minutes. It was so fantastic. So tell us about your experience getting your blood drawn, and then also like what happened while you understood what was going on, and what was that experience? Mom, we'll just come back to you.
Well, one is, I think you're right. One of the things that I was wonderful about is having someone come to me. They called, made an appointment. They just showed up at my door, came in, very professional. And it was just awesome. That alone was great. The other is, I think it gives you to see the numbers, gives you this sense of satisfaction that you, like you said, you're not crazy, that things are off balance. And the normal, when you go to your primary care physician or your OBGYN and say, yeah, you're within range. What is that range? Who knows? But that was the one thing I think this kind of goes in hand is when they review your numbers. They were so specific. Joy was my provider. Jessica was just amazing. And she went step by step by step, every single element of that. And to say, oh, I need this supplement and this supplement would be helpful. And me being older, quite a bit older than you, we found out that I was lacking in B12 and vitamin D. And those are things that, even though I live in Arizona, you're thinking, oh, you've got all the sunshine. Vitamin D makes all the difference in the world in my day-to-day life. So it was just really nice to have them be able to go step by step by step and to realize that, oh yeah, this is, and I am using a different provider for my, I have pellets. And so, but what I found so helpful and so reassuring is they were very supportive of that. If this is working for you, go ahead and continue that. And let's work on your other things that you might need. And I think that was what I was so blown away by, how supportive they were to me in my choices and my journey is, them being able to just say, okay, how do you feel? Instead of, well, nope, this is the protocol. This is what we do. I think that's the one thing that I've gotten really from Joy, is Jessica talks with me and find out, how are you doing? And how are you feeling? Should we change this up? And I feel like I have a say in my care, where sometimes when you go to a primary care physician, you don't feel like you have a say. You just go and tell them and they say, okay, here you go. And it's just, this is the standard. This is what we do. And that's what I've gotten from Jessica, from Joy, is that I have a say in my care. So.
I think it's really interesting that you bring that up, because I also use pellets, right? So I go to a local provider for testosterone pellets. And when I came across Joy, it was so fascinating to me that they really had the feeling that they're here for you to feel good. Like, they'll supplement in what pieces you need and support what's working for you. And they're not coming to you with a protocol. Anybody, even my local provider, I would say she has a protocol. This is the thing that works most for most women. And this is what we start with. We start with this and then we adjust from there. Joy doesn't seem to even have that. They're just like, let's figure out what you need and tweak from there. And I think that using a telehealth provider, one that's pretty large, that has a capacity to have many different doctors and many different providers, they are getting all of this information and knowledge and experience from different doctors. So you're not pinned down to this one thought process as you would be if you go to a local doctor. And I had never considered that in using, in the benefit of using a telehealth provider. So yeah, I love that you brought that up. Okay, April, let's go over to you and tell us what your experience was like getting your blood work done.
I think kind of the same of you said, and having just knowing that I had someone that was going to look into and figure out was just a relief. Like, we are just going to take the whole entire panels of all your biomarkers and really give you an overall look at the specifics of everything in your body at one time. Like, instead of going to this doctor and getting this opinion and another doctor, and this doctor will run this test, they just do it all. Like, it's an entire encompassing part of every part of your blood work. And just the relief of show up at your door, like you said, like, there's nothing like having to go sit and wait somewhere, to drive somewhere, right, to do that. You just are all, they're here. They, like your mom said, like, it was so professional, so nice just to know, like, it's being sent to the labs. And then you have your health coach that reaches out to you and says, let's go over this and do a lab review with you. And just to finally have someone that validates and hears you and has answers for you. I mean, my blood work came back the same at so many things off that you were just like, I knew it. I felt it all the way to the core of my soul that things were off. And so for them to be like, yeah, look at your cortisol is through the roof. You have no vitamin B12s, no vitamin D. Like you need estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. And I'm like, oh.
Put it in my body.
Yes. And I hadn't even gotten the prescription yet or started it. And I just like, my entire being just felt calmer, just having the answers, just the answers of knowing what was wrong and that they could help me fix it.
I think like women can take hope a long way, right? Like you said, even if you don't get the prescriptions, knowing that you're not crazy, just that element can like push you through to a lot of different things. But I mean, because in the end, whether we get on hormone replacement therapy or not, we're all going to make it through perimenopause, just like our kids make it through puberty. We're all going to get to the other side of menopause, whether you're doing hormones or not, right? And I think having hope and knowing that it's not your marriage, it's not your lack of motivation, it's not crap, to gain weight, it is your hormones. Like knowing that piece is so insanely valuable. I remember when I picked up the phone and called the local provider here, and not even blood work. I was just telling her my symptoms, and I remember her saying, "We help with that." Yeah. And I just bawling like, what? Like there's help? Like
you have solutions.
Just that. Yeah. And I don't think women maybe, we're so caught up in trying to find the right one and the exact right thing. And like, what's she doing? And I need to do that. Just knowing what's going on in your body is going to give you some kind of like, okay,
right,
we're going to be all right. Or like, now we know what to do. It's like finally getting the diagnosis, right? Of like, okay, I'm not going to die.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to be all right. It's just, it's completely validating. Okay. So let's talk to Brenda. Brenda, let's jump over here. What was your experience like finally seeing your numbers?
I'll probably just sound like a broken record, but, I would just say overall, like incredibly validating. That's the word that just has come through my mind even all along. It's like, it just helps confirm what you already know, but you couldn't quantify. Like we can't quantify our symptoms ever. Like we just know what we're feeling and we can talk about it, but it's not quantifiable. But when you do your lab work, it's like the proof, it's the data, and it's like, here's the data of my body. And it's like, no freaking wonder I couldn't get out of bed. It's no wonder I couldn't get out of bed. I have like zero energy, anything in my body. So and then to, like your mom said, with working with Jessica. And I think that's the part, whether you use Joy or any other provider, if you're a woman like seeking help, yes, you have to get your blood work done, but you really need to be able to review it with someone who's going to go over it line by line. Because what I learned is there are many things related to each other. Like what's going on in your thyroid affects what's going on in your gut. And then it affects what your hormones are doing. And they check your heart health, and like it's very comprehensive. So you're going to be able to see how all these things relate to each other. And when you can start working on one, then improvements help in the other. And I feel like that understanding and that education was incredibly valuable as well. So it was like valuable and validating, but also educational to know that, okay, there is something I can do, and these are all related, and then give you your options. It's like you were saying, there's no one size fits all. So it's, here are your options, what's going to work for you and your lifestyle and your budget. Because most of us can't do everything. We can't do everything that could be done to help our situation. So it's like, we get to choose, like your mom said, I get to choose what I want to prioritize first. So
Yes.
I loved the process. I remember calling you and I'm like, every woman needs this.
You're like, I'm not crazy.
I'm not crazy. I'm like, I felt very invigorated afterwards just with that knowledge and understanding and validation.
Well, you brought up some really good points. And I think, specifically with joy, there's a couple things that I really love is one, when you go through that comprehensive list, I feel like a regular doctor going through blood work, if they see that you're in like the red range, they'd be like, okay, this is what we're going to do for your cortisol. Here's this medication. Here's what we're going to do for your testosterone. Here's this. Here's what we're going to do for your vitamin D. Here's this, right? They're going to treat them as almost like separate individual needs of treatment. But with someone like Joy or a company or any provider that has this like holistic approach and looking at you as a whole thing, you're right. Like I get on testosterone and all of a sudden all of my levels improve, right? Or I go to fix my thyroid and all of a sudden all of my levels improve. I think we're all looking for like this symptom matches thyroid, or this symptom matches testosterone, or this symptom matches, vitamin D. And it's not like that. And I think, if you were, for instance, April, if you were to just focus on your thyroid and it fixed everything, you would be cheering like, fix your thyroid, it fixes everything.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, I'd be over here getting on testosterone with all of the same symptoms. And testosterone all of a sudden fixes everything. I'm going to be over here like, no, it's testosterone. But the end game is the balance. Right? The end game is just like whatever you put in your body that figured out how to balance everything out. And that's why we talk about balancing hormones, because it isn't one symptom links to one like hormone, right? And when you're working with a doctor that understands all the interactions of everything that's going on, it's really nice to have that information because you can start manipulating things and you understand what's going on, and you can kind of play with your progesterone, play with your estrogen, play with your testosterone. And it's fun to work with a doctor that will support that. Yeah, Brenda.
And I just want to add too, like as women, we are blessed with this like incredible intuition. And as we learn to listen to it, I think each of us intuitively if we really listen, is going to know which one we need to focus on. Because I don't know. I don't know if there's more to say about that, but I think there's some truth to that deep down, you're going to know what you need to prioritize. And it's going to look different for me than for you and for April and for the next woman. So trust yourself. Trust yourself.
Well, and there's a lot to say about that, because I think that Wake Her Up, really the base goal of waking her up is that women come back to themselves and trust themselves. I didn't even start Wake Her Up to even have a hormone therapy conversation. That was not what we were talking about. We were talking about waking up your soul, trusting yourself, falling in love with yourself, going with the flow, allowing yourself to just go through life and watch and be amazed by it. And it's so amazing to realize that even with all the research, all of the answers, all the most amazing doctors, our whole directory that we put together, the bottom line of all of this, of where to get the answer, is you. I mean, the tagline of Wake Her Up is, if you think something's missing, it's you. So when you're like, I don't know what to do, I have all these options, just, I think, sit with yourself for a minute and go with whatever is next. We always talk about like next right thing. Just do something, right? Like maybe Joy Women's Wellness isn't the exact right thing, but like just make any kind of step forward, because your soul is, you're here, you're listening to this. That's not just that's not random. There's a reason why you're listening to this conversation right now. And it's because your soul is ready to take next steps. And all you have to do is just take a next step and just trust the next step and trust the journey of all of it. It doesn't mean that the next right step is going to fix you forever. It just means that you're now listening and you're trusting. So absolutely, I think that's probably the biggest part in this entire thing. Mom?
I just want to say, I'm just so grateful that you and everyone is listening and is searching, because there wasn't a thing as perimenopause. I mean, I'm just learning this. I mean, people my age and older, they're just depressed and feel like a blob because that's just what we do because we're in menopause. And it's so sad. I have shared, hormone replacement with multiple people. And there's some women that are way, what's the word, accepting of it. And then there's other women, well, I'm 70, so, well, I'm just miserable. And it makes me sad. It makes me so sad that that's the narrative. That, as we get older, we're just, if we have these side effects and these symptoms of menopause, well, that's just the way it is. We're getting older.
Yeah.
And I remember to that point. Oh, go ahead, Brenda.
Oh, sorry. I just remember my mom telling me, I was like, I'm just so tired all the time. And she's like, welcome to getting older. And I was just like, oh,
yeah.
Yeah. And to that point, there's a lot of conversation about like natural and going natural and being natural. And I like to kind of think like in the world we live in, if you want to age naturally, look at what's going on. Most people are ending up in memory care facilities. Most people are ending up like with broken hips. Like that's the natural aging process in the world we live in right now. So if you don't want to do that, then you do need to supplement in things that will make it so that you're not ending up in a memory care facility, that you're not having dementia, that you're not breaking hips, that you are actively available to contribute to your life. Like we have to take some action towards that. So respect to anyone that wants to age naturally, but I'm just here to tell, like, we're all here to tell you, like you don't have to, right? I mean, and then there's a whole conversation of like what's natural, what's not. And to that point, I think there's such a misrepresentation, and we could get into all of that about hormones and, just to touch on this really quick so that anybody listening is like, but hormones, my doctor said it's going to cause cancer, or my doctor said it's unsafe, or he's shaming me for doing it. You need to go look at the study called, it was a study in the 90s about hormones, and it has now been rescinded. There's articles in the New York Times about it, and it basically just kind of immediately took hormones off the table. In the 90s, it was something like 70 to 80% of women in their 50s were on hormones. Like 70 to 80% were on hormones. And then now it's like 4%.
Wow.
Like it has devastated women's health, and there's been a lot of new research since, but that one study completely took hormones off the table, and it was just completely marketed wrong. It does not cause cancer. Now, there are cancers that are fueled by hormones, but understand that is the cancer. It's not caused by hormones. And so I think there's a lot of misconception there. There's a listener right now that has given us her experience, and I want to read this really quick because this is so freaking typical. She said, I'm here, literally had a frustrating visit with my provider this morning. Why has no one even mentioned labs to find out why my body is so miserable? I've been on estrogen for 6 months, progesterone for 4 months, and DHEA for 2 months, and I'm gaining weight. Nobody's asking why. I frustrated her, meaning her doctor, by my frustration, and she threatened to start me with a new provider. How many women have been in that situation where you start raising your voice in your doctor's office and you start asking like deep questions, and your provider starts like rolling her eyes and just like flipping through her paper and is like, you can instantly tell like, oh, my questions aren't like welcomed here, and she gets defensive. I've been in that room several times.
Yes.
And that is a common experience that should not be happening. And I think that's why I want to be so loud about the type of providers that we list on our directory, and providers like Joy Women's Wellness, because we don't have to do those appointments anymore. I didn't know that there were doctors like Joy. I had no idea that I had other options. And yes, is this out of pocket? Yeah. Most of these situations are out of pocket. Unfortunately, that's the world we live in. Women's health over 40 is literally not included in your insurance to the level that you need it. It just isn't. It's insane.
I live in a senior community. I mean, it's a 55 and older. And most of my neighbors are women. And you're thinking, you go to the doctor and it's like it's a new thing. It's like, are you insane? I mean, I went to my provider and said, what can you do for me? And she pretty much said, yeah, we really don't know. I told her I was going to look into pellets, and she went, hey, let me know how that goes for you. She goes, I'd like to hear about it. I mean, at least she was positive about it. And she's like, hey, whatever works. If you need to do that, go ahead. But she wasn't against it. But she said, yeah, let me know, because she says, I'm curious. They don't teach us much about hormones. I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? This is more than half of your clientele.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't look at, doctors don't look at us as clients,
That's insane. Well, I want to jump into like how you feel now, right? Like the treatment you used and what worked and what was that journey and how long did it take to get to the point where like it's working? Because for me, getting on hormone therapy, it felt immediate. I mean, I could tell a difference in a day. I was sleeping all night. By the 7th day, I had energy. By the 4th month, my bones didn't hurt anymore and I had a high libido, right? So that was my timeline. And that was just from testosterone and progesterone. And I did a very high dose of testosterone from pellets, which is not right for everyone. That can really not be good for a lot of women, but it was exactly right for me. I just happened to nail it down like that first dose. I've had to adjust since, but yeah, let's start with you, Mom. Where did you start?
Started with pellets due to you. And 48 hours. I didn't have a hot flash at night. It took 48 hours. And 2 years prior to that, I was sweating bullets, and going and them saying, well, there's nothing we can do. So to have pellets and then 28 hours be able to sleep through the night without, it was incredible. So, and since then, I go through Joy. I do tirzepatides and B12 and vitamin D. It's helped with my energy level. I mean, my story. I've gone through multiple surgeries in the last couple of years due to other health issues. And I'm finally getting back to where I feel like me. Even your dad said, it's nice to have your sparkle back. And so, and he's appreciating the pellets and yeah, it's changed our lives a lot to the better. Feel like I have energy, still not back to doing full 100%, but I'm working on that. And yeah, Joy has just been great, given me hope. I think that's, and a year ago, October, I had back surgery, and I finally feel like, at that point, I thought I was done. And so just physically and mentally, I'm finally feeling like me. So, yeah, it's nice to be back.
And, I'll cry, but as your daughter, like, it's really nice to have you back. And I think, because dementia runs in our family and I watch you care for your mom, there's something that's so empowering and hopeful knowing we're doing all that we can to make it so that you're not going to be there, and even if you end up being there, we did what we could and that feels good, and I'm just so glad that you were like open to it and willing to try it, and it's different. And I think that can be scary and it can be risky and uncomfortable, and I'm just really, really glad that you're doing it. So
Me too.
I love you.
Thanks.
April, what has your experience been in your, what do we want to call peri-recovery? I don't know.
Birthing Perry babies. I'm the same, like just having you say like that sparkle back. I think that when I received my first shipment of my treatment plan and the medications that we decided to start with was like the best Christmas birthday celebration that I had had in years. I mean, I'm talking a half of a decade, 5 years of feeling like not me. Like I remember looking in the mirror and not recognizing myself anymore. And not just from the 35, 40 pounds that I gained. Like I gained weight when I had babies and it was different. There was just something different in my face. I remember in college, we watched, and I have never been able to find it again, but it was in my psychology class, but they did pictures on women's face for like 6 months during every day of the month. And they showed your face hormonally changes during your cycles. And sometimes it's not so pretty. That's why you look in the mirror and you're like, what's wrong with me? I'm just not looking like myself. And I just remember for years, like, that's not me. Like something's off in my face. So I get this package of medication and I'm literally jumping up and down and crying like, no one's even home, but just me just celebrating that I have these answers. And, you know, I get these medications shipped to my door. I don't have to go pick them up and wait in lines at pharmacies. They're just like right there, ready to be taken. And if I had any questions about it, I have my health coach that I could just give a call and say, okay, how do I actually take this? What do I do with this? You know, what's the process of it all? And I felt just so secure in being able to know what these were going to do. And same, I think within 24 hours, and I know it's part mental of just knowing it's in my body. It's these, my body needs this. It was almost just like, you know, being so dehydrated. I think Marcella's talked about it this week of just putting in the water into your body, but these medications, like my body was dehydrated from not having these hormones and it just sucked them in. And I think like 48 hours, I was sleeping better. It took a few days for my feet not to be on fire anymore, but all of a sudden I had, my feet were like, they got cold for the first time in years. I was all, my feet are cold. Like people, my friends and family would be like, your feet are cold? I'm like, yeah, you know, I've been complaining about this for years. I was so happy, just so elated that I could feel the change just start to shift, you know, and it does take, after years of your body being off, it does take months for it to really balance all out. But it just knowing it and feeling it starting to work is just so hopeful.
Yeah, there's, like I said, there's a big difference. It might take you a year to actually figure out your actual internal hormonal situation, but the pep in your step, knowing that like you're not dying, it changes everything, right? So good. All right, Brenda, we're going to jump over to you. What was your experience?
My experience was not immediate. I started on testosterone and estrogen, and I honestly didn't feel better for about 3 months. So for me, it took longer. I didn't get, and a lot of mine, and I don't know if I wasn't experiencing hot flashes or anything quite so distinct like that. Mine was more just fatigue. Like, for example, before I felt like, I'm not a big napper, but I felt like mid-afternoon, 2, 3, 4 o'clock, somewhere in that window, I felt like I just needed to like lay down and just rest every day. And I finally got to a point where I don't have to do that anymore. And I don't even remember okay, like with holidays, of course, like
I've been all napping for 2 weeks.
We've all been napping, yeah. Like, where did the last 2 weeks go? But outside that, but just typically, I don't feel that need to lay down and rest. And I'm going to the gym, I'm waking up, I'm getting my workouts in, and I'm being consistent with that. So, but it wasn't immediate. it took a while. We had to play with my dosage. So I took a dose for, was it 6 or 8 weeks? And then we increased it, just because I wasn't feeling the positive, even though my numbers and the lab work at the 6 or 8 month, I can't remember if it was at 6 weeks or 8 weeks, but they kind of, that's the other great thing is you're regularly doing labs, so you can adjust as needed. And my numbers were much improved, but I still wasn't feeling great. So it's like, well, then your body might just need some more. So let's continue to play with it. So I think we're at a point now where I feel like my levels and the amount that I take is probably good. So yeah, but I feel much better.
I love
much more alive, much more myself. I mean, compared to a year and a half ago where I was not well. I was not doing well. I feel really good.
I feel like I got my mom back, my friend back, my supporter of all things back. And it's just beautiful to watch like women wake up, quite frankly, you know. And we have a question here that said, you know, when should you start seeking hormone therapy? I'd say when you feel like crap, like when you want to, when you're ready. If your doctor is telling you that you're too young, that's a big freaking sign that your doctor knows nothing about hormone therapy. If you're expressing symptoms like you're tired all the time, you're gaining weight, you have no libido, you have lack of energy, you have lack of motivation, your bones hurt. I mean, we could just go on and on, right? Weird taste, new allergies, your hair is falling out, your hair is changing, like all of this stuff. You could have a regular period and all of these things could be happening. You could tell your doctor, and your doctor typically is going to say, you're too young. They could even run your blood work and tell you that you're in normal range. And normal range, I'll just say it loud every freaking day. Normal is not good. Like somebody decided what that normal range is based on how all women feel. And we can all basically agree that most women, just your average woman, feels like shit. Like that's just, so if you don't want to feel crappy, then you need to get out of normal range.
Yeah.
But that is what's confusing, is because if you went and got blood work for some scary diagnosis of something, right? Like if you get blood work for cancer and they come back and you say you look normal, you're like, yay, that's a celebration. This is not that. If you get your hormones tested and they say you're normal, that's bad. That's where we're at.
Yeah. And I think if I can interject too with this normal, like most doctors, even getting your blood work, like if you go to your OBGYN or general practitioner, they're not doing full panel. They're probably not even looking at your testosterone.
Right.
No.
But you don't know as a patient, unless you know to ask for it, you don't know that. And that's what's so crazy about all of this. And why I love that we're being loud here is because you have to advocate for yourself. You have to know to ask for it. And you have to know to find a provider who's actually going to work with you and look at the right blood panels, because most doctors aren't even running it. Right. They say they're doing your blood work. They're not really looking at your hormones or maybe estrogen and progesterone. I might be wrong. Don't quote me on any of this, but that's like at least what I've been understanding.
Well, but how many of us when you go get your lab work done and you give it back and they say, oh yeah, everything looks fine. Yeah. You know, yeah. I mean, really when I had my appointment with Joy, I look at the numbers, I'm looking at them on the screen. I'm like, I don't know. I mean, I have no idea what any of those numbers mean. Right. So to have them sit and go line by line by line and explain to me, well, this is a little high, this is a little low, we might want to work on this. This is why, if this is low, this might be this, you know, and you're like, oh, but I would have known that. Mm-hmm. I mean, how would I, unless I am trained on those things, I don't know what those are. I'm looking at going, I mean, I have no idea what those numbers mean. And maybe I'm naive. Maybe I'm the dumb one of the group.
Nobody knows what those numbers mean.
That is normal. That's normal not to understand.
But I was very grateful for when they went line by line. Yeah. and help me understand what those numbers meant and what to look for next time.
They're not just picking out the problems. They are literally going every single point in your body. And the one thing I really like too is when they're like, hey, you look a little high here, but how are your nails? Or something like that, like they'd ask you specific questions. So like, but are you feeling like this or that? Okay, well then we're not going to worry about that. Maybe your body likes to just run high. It's like people that run a high temperature all the time. Their bodies just run high. It's not a concern, right? And I love that they take that approach in the markers. Maybe it's in the green or in the yellow phase, or it's in the red phase on the actual paperwork. But they're like, okay, but like, how do you feel? And you're like, I feel good. Like, then why would we mess with it? Like, let's just leave it.
But women don't know to ask for that,
right? No. Because when we do that, we get like shamed by our regular doctors. So we've learned to like not ask questions because it offends them.
I've never had I get my annual every year with my OB, and I get blood work done every year. I've never once had a doctor review one line of it ever with me.
Ever. Same.
So it's like you just get the letter in the mail, thumbs up or thumbs down. For me, it's always been a thumbs up, right? So and then the end, like that's it. So I think the normal person thinks that's getting your lab work done. Right. But I think what we're talking about is this next level, which is really where we're going to find the help.
Well, it's education. They're educating us to let us know what our bodies, and like Marcella said, like then you get to know what is higher. And so there is no normal. Everybody's so different. And I think what Brenda said earlier, you've got to just really pay attention to that intuition of this feels right, this doesn't feel right.
Absolutely.
And have a doctor that will listen.
Well, and I think this is where we come in, right? This is where Wake Her Up comes in. This is where the community and the directory comes in, because at the end of this conversation, the question literally somebody is asking right now, like, okay, sounds good, but where do we find this doctor? And that is the question. I've watched, there's many documentaries out right now. There's The Balance, there's the M Factor, there's all these documentaries. There's also books. There's a lot of social media doctors that are big and loud about the awareness of menopause and the symptoms. There was a whole thing on Good Morning America about menopause, which is so good. But at the end of the day, women are like, sounds good, but where do I go? Because my doctor is not helping me. And that is where Wake Her Up comes in. So if you go to wakeherup.co, the 52,000 women in our community have been recommending the doctors that they have found that do blood work like this, that recommend the types of hormones that your body needs, that work with you until you feel good. Now, these doctors are a big range. You've got telehealth, you have local, you have pellets, you have doctors that do just creams. But we're hoping that because you're part of this conversation and part of this community, you know what the options are, and you can pick up the phone and ask them, do you do this? Do you do this? Do you do this? You can know what you're walking into. It's kind of the best that we have right now. So if you go to wakeherup.co, there's over 500 doctors listed on that directory. And all of us right here have been using Joy Women's Wellness, which is a telehealth women's health company. And you can go to Choose Joy, and Joy is JOI.co. And you can even use the code Wake Her Up, and they'll give you 50% off your labs. So when we're talking about labs, we're not talking about a $500 lab panel. We're talking like a $80 lab panel that comes with this consult that we have all talked about. We're talking $80 just to know what's going on in your body. So you can go to Choose Joy, JOI.co, use code Wake Her Up, and get your labs done for 50% off. And then when you go to wakeherup.co, you can also join this conversation, join the community. It's free. Be part of this. So if you go to any provider and they're like, hey, here's your labs, and you don't get the comprehensive help you need, there are women in our community that literally post their labs. They're like, what do you guys think? Why? Because all these women are getting their opinions from their doctors, and we're all able to just kind of, well, my doctor said this and my doctor said that. And then the other thing too is, one thing I love about Joy is if you're low in vitamin D, if you're, all these supplements, yes, they can provide them for you, but also they're okay if you just go figure out where to get your own supplements. And that's another place where you can come back to Wake Her Up and say, okay, I need calcium or I need magnesium. What's the best magnesium? And it's just this beautiful space where women are just helping women. So if you're listening to this, please come hang out with us. Just go to wakeherup.co for the community, for the resources, for the directory, and find the doctors that are helping women like you just heard all of these women's experiences, and start your own journey. It's going to be unique to you, and hopefully you'll be part of this conversation and share your unique experience so that you can help a woman that's going to have your similar experience hang in there. There's a woman that came back on the Facebook group. She goes, I've been hanging out here for a year. I've been doing hormone therapy for a year, waiting, thinking I was doing it wrong. And she finally was like, but I hung in there and my libido's back and we are back. And I'm so glad I stuck it out. And it took her a whole year to get there. And I mean, if you go 5 years trying to figure this out, I'm 44, I'll be 5 years down the road, whether I do this or not, it's just the same thing. Like if it took me 5 years, then I get most of my life feeling good, even if it takes me 5 years to figure it out. So I just want to encourage everyone that's here to take this journey, whether it's with actual hormone replacement or just knowing what's going on in your body and you choosing what you do with that information. You deserve to feel good. And we need to live in a world where women are awake and alive, and we're not just putting more and more women into mental care facilities and memory care facilities and having all of these women just slowly die. Like, I don't want to live in that world. So hopefully this conversation can encourage some women to take that next step, and we're going to just keep saving the world one woman at a time. So thank you, all of you, for being here. Thank you, Mom. Thank you, April. Thank you, Brenda. You're all so beautiful. It's really a privilege to watch you wake up and shine. And I'm so grateful to be this close to you and watch this experience. And everybody that's here and everybody that's listening or everybody that's going to listen, thank you for taking the chance and the time to make it all the way to the end of this. And we really hope that you'll come and share your journey of awakening your soul with us. And with that, everyone, go live your life awake and alive. Thanks for being here, everyone.
Thank you. Bye, guys.